2005, I won my first European indoors, and that was a change. Like, I probably didn't even expect that myself, and nobody else did. So when you go to a championship and you come back with, like, I think at the time it was Ireland's first gold medal in a sprint event in about, I don't know, nearly 70 years. Suddenly things had changed, and your face is in the paper and you're going on the Late Late Show, and it's kind of a bit like, hang on a sec. And I probably struggled with that. It was a little bit overwhelming. Now there's expectation. Now I have to perform. It's very cutthroat, and it's very it's worrying as well, because you'd love to have a bit of security for the long term. It doesn't quite happen like that. I remember kind of going like, I can't warrant to spend that money. So I was a little bit of, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I might have a good year, I might have a bad year next year. So I was good at saving, and I'd probably get that from my dad. My dad was the type of person that would go down to the shops and come back and then put everything out on the table and then get the receipt and then make sure, tot it all up and make sure that it was all there. I wanted to get married, I wanted to have a family, I wanted to buy a house, all of these things. And then you're thinking, how am I going to pay for this? But the biggest worry was around money, and I'm not gonna lie. I suppose when I initially retired, I kind of resented the sport a bit, because it hurt me and it put me in a position that I was a little bit uncomfortable. But I think as I got older, I look back and I go, what opportunities it gave me. I traveled the world. I ran in front of 80,000 people.
In today's episode, I'm talking to David Gillick, who is one of Ireland's most successful sprint athletes. He's an Olympian, a podcaster, a best-selling author, a celebrity MasterChef, media contributor, and you may recognise him from your TV screens this summer, where he was in Paris and he was presenting this year's Olympics for RTE. I first met David on set of the 6 o'clock show, where it was quite the experience, as we were joined by the late Coolio, who unfortunately passed away not long after the show. He entertained us in the green room with stories of the past, as I'm sure you can imagine, and he also joined all of us on the show. I'm excited to have David on the show today because he is so passionate about wellness, and I am excited to hear about his journey, which hasn't been an easy one, as he went from his career on the track to retiring and finding a new purpose. And I am so excited for you to hear his journey as he overcame mental struggles to become one of Ireland's most favourite sports contributors. So David, it's lovely to have you on.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I haven't
seen
you in a while.
I know. No, delighted to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You've been very busy over the last while.
Yeah. It's been a bit crazy.
Yeah.
The last couple of months have been mad, yeah.
Yeah. But I would love to know, just to start off with, your beginnings of your career.
It's kind of when you say the career, it's like, well, which career you're referring to?
Yeah.
Because I think the athletics is probably something that people might know me about originally. And that would have started years ago as a kid. I'm from Dublin. I'm the youngest of 4. So I have 2 brothers, a sister and me. And my mum and dad were into sport. That's probably my earliest memory is watching my mum and dad participate in various sports. And being the youngest, you're kind of shoehorned into what everybody else does. And I was very lucky in my area where I grew up that there was an athletics club at the end of a road. And that's basically, why I and why my brothers and sister got involved in athletics. It was literally at the end of our road. And I think as well in primary school, I had a teacher who was passionate about athletics. And every time, around springtime, she would get us out running. And then you go on and you do like the Cumann Bun School, the Dublin primary school sports. And that's kind of where I found I have a bit of a talent. And I think fast forward a couple of years, you try every other sport growing up. And it wasn't until I was about maybe 19 did I really kind of begin to focus on athletics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's quite late.
Would that be quite late in regards to most people?
It would, and kind of, now, I'm a parent now, we've 3 kids, and Oscar, my eldest, who's 8, is mad into his soccer and he's doing athletics, he's doing everything. And, you get parents who kind of go, they should be specialising, should be doing this. And I just think back to the way I was kind of brought up through my teenage years, and I think a bit of variety is good. So I think a lot of the research now is saying that we should be specialising late. Which kind of, the age of 16, 17 is when maybe you specialise on the one sport. So when you're younger, a variety of sport gives you so much kind of more development in terms of your athletic development, really. So that's, it was considered late, but it was off the back of going to the World Juniors in Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'll never forget that trip. went over there. I didn't make the individual standard, but they sent a relay team. And there was a guy who was running the 200 meters from Jamaica called Usain Bolt.
Mhm.
And on a Saturday night, he was about, so you're talking juniors is like under kind of, around about the age of 18. And he was younger. He was about 16. And he came out and he absolutely annihilated everyone over 200 meters.
I can
And
imagine.
and the whole place was just going bonkers. And that for
And
me
he-
was, yeah, he's like, he had just announced himself, even though he was a junior world champs, but he smashed it. And I remember coming off the back of that, just thinking, that's it. I want to be like him. I want to be an athlete. And that was the start of it all. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
So how did you make that happen then? Because I can imagine it's quite a difficult thing to go from, thinking you're really good at a sport, but can be quite hard to actually direct that
Oh, yeah.
into making it your career.
And like, it's probably a good point. Like my direction, I think even, kind of my teenage years, I was probably distracted on other things, my mates heading out and a couple of cans in fields, I did all that and it was good crack and I wouldn't change it because, you learn, you grow up. But I think when I got a little bit older, I realised I had a bit of a talent, then you start kind of thinking, I wonder where this could go. And, when you get an experience like Jamaica, you want more of that. But it wasn't until probably 2005 I won my first European indoors, and that was a change. I probably didn't even expect that myself, and nobody else did. So when you go to a championship and you come back with, I think at the time it was Ireland's first gold medal in a sprint event in about, I don't know, nearly 70 years or even more.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a, whoa, okay. I was young. I was like, I was approaching 21, I think, at the time. So, and I was in college in Dublin, and it just, suddenly things had changed, and your face is in the paper and you're going on the Late Late Show, and it's kind of a bit like, hang on a sec. And I probably struggled with that, it was a little bit overwhelming, now there's expectation, now I have to perform. And I struggled off the back of that in terms of even performances and stuff, it was just all a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's all a bit crazy. And then I had a bad experience the following year at the European Championships where I didn't run well at all. And I'd also finished college that year. And I was kind of like, that was the crossroads to kind of go, right, what am I doing now? Do I get a job or what?
And what did you study in college?
So I did science in UCD
Okay.
and I hated it. And I dropped out after a year. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing.
In
I
science.
studied science for a year.
Get away, did you? Where, in UCD?
Not in UCD.
Oh, we're not bashing any third level institutions. Yeah, when I think back, I didn't do chemistry for my leaving cert. And the way the subjects went, I got landed with chemistry. And sure, I didn't have a clue, didn't have a clue. And I packed that in after a year, and then I did a degree in supply chain management in DIT. And I don't know, someone asked me recently, why did you do that course? And it just, something caught me. It was just movement or something. I was like, that seems really interesting. And when I kind of looked at it a bit more, I was like, yeah, do you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And I did 4 years of that. And then I came out with a degree. And it was a business degree, so there was plenty of options off the back of it. And that was, but all my mates and even college mates were getting jobs and stuff like that, and some were going traveling. And that's kind of the first decision. I was like, you know what, I kind of want to give athletics a go.
Yeah.
What'll happen if I don't? And so I kind of made a promise with myself, right, David, give it a rattle till you're 30 and see what happens. And I was only, by this stage, I was 22, going on 23. But I felt I couldn't do it in Ireland. I needed to relocate. So I moved over to Loughborough University in England.
Okay.
And I continued my studies. I did a master's over there, but it was a 1-year master's, and I think it took me about 3 years to do. Because I was an athlete and that's what I wanted to do. And I went over there and I put myself in an environment and I loved it, So taking that risk of kind of, will this work out? But then sometimes I think that success, you make it happen, you take that leap of faith, you be brave and I think for me it was just put myself in that environment where maybe I was going to be pushed a little bit and around like-minded people and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that comes across so much as somebody who watches sport is there definitely seems to be a camaraderie because you're all in this zone where you have to be so focused and you have to work so hard, and then it comes down to a moment, a day.
And that's what it is. Like we were chatting to the chef de mission, and chef de mission is the team leader for the Olympics, and Gavin Noble, and he would have competed at the Olympics himself in triathlon, and he spoke about those moments. So when I was asking, like medals, he was like, it's hard to put a number on the medals. I know there's we'd love double figures in medals, but he said we need moments first. We need moments to be creative. We need moments to happen, and if we get enough moments, well, then the medals will follow. And that's exactly it. And athletics you look at it and go, it's an individual sport, but there's great camaraderie, there's great respect. You need those people, and that's probably the difference between like a group of people and a team. In a team, like, you have to interact with those people. In a group, you like each other and stuff like that, but in a team, you have to interact with each other in order for you all to realize your potential and get your goals. And that's really what I found when I went over to England. Suddenly, I was with these people who were, I was helping them, they were helping me. We were interacting on a day-to-day basis, and you get confidence out of that as well. And I loved it. I absolutely loved being over there. It was fantastic. It was great.
And so then your career is taking place. You're winning quite often, as far as I can see.
Yeah, it was going well. Like, I was getting faster, and, in athletics, my event 400, it's all down to numbers, and the quicker you go, more opportunities in terms of getting into better races, getting into championships where you're getting a bit of profile. And then with that, like a bit of sponsorship, a bit of, the financial side kicks in as well, where you can begin to maybe afford to train full time. That can become your priority. And that's a great kind of position to get to.
And how is it financially? Because as far as I am aware, it's not necessarily a steady
no
sure wage.
It's really funny actually, because people will look maybe at Olympics and look at medal winners and think, they're made for life and stuff like that. And look, arguably, yes, some will, but some won't. It all comes down to like even their event, and their sport. In athletics, the way it would work is that there's a couple of revenue kind of streams. Like, your funding from government, so your sports grant would be the first and foremost thing that you're trying to get your hands on, and that's performance based. So you have to hit a certain criteria, and then you'll get funding. Off the back of that, then you're kind of looking at, right, well, can I get a gear contract? So again, you're looking for one of the big sports brands to maybe back you, come on board. But again, you have to be at your top of your game, and to get a long-term contract. So sometimes you want like a multi-year deal. Well, then you have to be making like top 8 in the world. You have to make a finals. It's tough. And then sponsorship. So again, you're looking at maybe getting the face in the paper, get a brand or a business, someone kind of maybe to back you. And then probably the last area would be actual income from the races. So the likes of like the top meets, like the Diamond Leagues and stuff like that, there will be prize money for those. So if you can get yourself into that kind of elite side of the sport and get into those races, well then, you'll earn a bit of money. But again, the season's very short. So you spend more time training than you do racing. And it's not a mainstream sport, so it doesn't get the exposure. And then, sport to sport, you might have a year where you get injured, you don't compete. And you can be cut. A lot of the big brands, particularly the gear brands, would have reducing contracts if you're not competing. So if you don't hit certain numbers, well then they'd knock 10, 20, 25% off, So, it's very cutthroat, and it's very it's worrying as well, because you'd love to have a bit of security for the long term, but it doesn't quite happen like that,
Stressful, I'd say.
Very stressful. And then you're your own CEO. You're trying to plan your year. And for an awful lot of athletes, they'll go away to races, they'll go away in training camps. That all costs money. So you're trying to kind of find the gaps. Okay, what do I need to do to enable that to happen? And I think, early in my career, winning the Europeans in 05 and then again in 07 kind of gave me a bit of exposure. I was able to get a bit of sponsorship in, and, I was very frugal with my money. I went to England. There was a guy I was training with, a good mate of mine, and he won. He done very well as a junior, and then got a nice contract and stuff like that. But he was in a scenario where he was around other people who had done well, and when you're young and you're 18, 19, you spend. And I can remember I was about 4 years older. I remember kind of going like, I can't warrant to spend that money. So I was a little bit of, well, I don't know what's going to happen. You
Mm.
know, I might have a good year, I might have a bad year next year. So I was good at saving, and I'd probably get that from my dad. My dad was the type of person that would go down to the shops and come back and then put everything out on the table and then get the receipt and then make sure, you know, tot it all up and make sure that it was all there, you know, which I think in my line of work wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I think that you're so right, but it takes a bit of foresight to really
Yeah.
like, be that kind of person. Um, and it must have been very difficult as well for your family. Like you would have had a young family at certain stages of your career, and to be trying to get married, have kids.
Yeah, like you know, the running kind of went for nearly. I probably competed at the highest level for about a decade. But when I was got to my kind of like even like late 20s, like so even like 26, 27, then you know people are going, oh, what are you going to do when it's all done? Like, and you're like, I'm still running. They're like, oh no, yeah, but like you know, you're getting on a bit, you know, and you're 28. And then eventually, yeah, I retired, and I think in my year that I retired, I was 29, and I got badly injured, and I had a couple of injuries in the season before, so I'd lost my funding.
Right.
I yeah, I'd pretty much lost all income. So I was now living off the savings that I had, and I was in Australia trying to get
So you
back.
lost your career and your income.
Yeah, like I went from like I remember one phone call I went from like 40 grand to zero.
Oh
And I
my
remember
gosh.
thinking, shit, right, okay, okay. And it was no badness. You almost expect these things because like you know the way the sport works. I wasn't hitting the fast times. I wasn't getting into the big races. Through injury, I didn't compete in like 2011. I missed the London Olympics 2012 through injury. And I kind of knew the writing was on the wall, you know, but you always it's the kind of reality of then you're kind of looking at the bank account going like, and then you're dipping into savings, right? I'm going to go to Australia. I'm going to give it another go, and it's costing you money. So that was quite scary. And then you're approaching 30, and you know life takes over. I at the time, my now wife, we had a long term relationship. You know. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to buy a house. You know all of these
Mm,
things, and then you're thinking, how am I going to pay for this? Like,
mm.
and that was probably the hardest challenge to be brutally honest because I retired, and like I don't know, it was crazy. Like, you know, the career's over and you're thinking, yeah, grand, I can move on. Everyone's like, oh, you'll move on. But the biggest worry was around money, and I'm not gonna lie. Like, funnily enough, I got asked to do Celebrity MasterChef. So that's why I came back to Dublin.
Yeah.
This was in 2013 because I was doing nothing else. And I said, well, I'll do this. And then I managed to win that. And which was great, don't get me wrong, and it was gas. But like then you're kind of thinking, right, I need to use this now. I need to make money off it. And this has to work. And I put an awful lot of pressure on me. And then it was like the reality of waking up. You know, I remember on a Monday in September 2013, thinking, right, what do I do now? What's the rest of my life? And I got a job. And I took this job. It was working for a sports brand, so it's kind of in my area, in my space, and what I was interested in. But the main reason I took it was for money.
Mm,
I didn't really kind of go, well, what's the job? I was like, yeah, grand salary, boom, give it to me. Yeah, sounds all right.
mm.
Um, which is probably the wrong way. And I was spending an awful lot of time by myself because of this job. My team was based over in the UK, and that was hard.
Mm.
That was pretty difficult. And again, that was driven by. I'm not ashamed to admit, like I thought, if I have more money, I'd be happy,
Yeah.
and I wasn't.
I think that's a very normal reaction to have, especially when you've gone from the fear of a job where you're not guaranteed your
Yeah.
income. And there's definitely days, I know we all have them that are self-employed, to think, oh gosh, I'd love that regular
Oh,
wage.
I know, and yeah, and even the routine that comes with it, and even when I got that job, and you know, like mentally, I wasn't in a great place because I hadn't really debriefed, I hadn't really taken stock of what had just happened for the last decade. So then I got another job, and it was all about the money without actually asking me. I kind of go like, oh, what do I want to do? And then eventually, when I did do that, it was like, oh, what about the money?
Mm,
You know, and you mentioned kind of like working for yourself and maybe even freelancing. It's the peaks and troughs that suddenly you're kind of going like, and when I was starting off, I didn't know about the peaks and the troughs. You know what I mean? And so when suddenly things are busy and then suddenly things aren't busy, and you're thinking, all right, this is it. I've been found out now. Now I have to get a real job,
mhm.
you know? And it was hard. That was, yeah, like in we got married, and then we were expecting Oscar, who's now 8. We've 3 kids now, and I can remember just how am I going to pay for this? And you compare yourself to other people as well. People who might have 10 years in careers, and from the athletics, you're starting off year number 1 and you're already 30, and people are 10 years ahead of you in careers, and you're kind of thinking,
But that's why I like getting people on for this podcast, because I think it's so easy to look at people like yourself who right now look really successful and they're doing everything. But it's so important to break down the path that you're to get to where you are currently, and to hear about the thoughts you've had along the way and the choices you've made. Because that path is never just a straightforward path.
Never. And you're mentioning, kind of right now, people might look and go, Jesus, Gillick, you're everywhere, and you've had a great summer, and God, you're brilliant at the Olympics and all that sort of stuff. And one guy said to me, Jesus, you're an overnight success. And I was like, I've done 3 Olympics in the mix zone. You know what I mean? I've shoveled shit. I've said yes to things, and I've been standing there going, how am I here? How am I in this position? I've done loads of different things, and I don't know. Maybe it's the fruits of the labor of doing all the little bits and bobs and kind of, figuring things out and understanding. I can remember going down off the back of MasterChef, going down to a little sports store, Newcastle West, on a wet winter's Tuesday night, lashing rain, and going in and flipping pancakes to try and flog a few pairs of trainers. And I remember there was probably about 15 people there looking at me. I can remember doing a thing for a car brand one time and doing something similar, the MasterChef thing. Right, I'll do this, not having a clue, going down and flipping a pancake and it missing the frying pan. And the gasp of people going like this, and then the thing slipped off the made up kitchen, and I remember just thinking, right, get me out of here. And those are the things that people don't see, but every person that, and I've looked into successful people, and you read the books and all that sort of stuff, and it's fascinating to actually understand that their journey, because like you said, it's never ever a straight line. And I suppose it's that perseverance. It's maybe not saying no sometimes when maybe you kind of know I shouldn't be doing this, but you do it, and maybe a door opens or something, you have a connection with someone. You just simply never know.
And stepping into that fear, because I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is where you see maybe the door is opened for a new path, but it's so scary to take that first step. Anything that's worth doing has always been scary, I've found personally.
No, 100%. But you're even starting a podcast, you know what I mean? You're kind of thinking, right, what's this going to look like? How am I going to do it? Sure, nobody's going to want to talk to me.
Is anyone going to listen?
Is anyone going to listen? All of these things. But I think where I'm at now is probably in a space where, I suppose over the years I've learned to trust my gut feeling a little bit as well, and trust maybe the people that you meet, and kind of think, okay, can I work with this person, or can I create a bond with that person, or can I get along with them? And then certain opportunities, I nearly opened a restaurant in when I think about this, it's how did I get myself this? I nearly opened a restaurant. Now, it wasn't just me, there was someone else involved, and our opening date was, I think it was something like the 10th of April 2001. I think it was around about that, which was COVID. It was when COVID kicked in. Maybe we got the year. When was COVID? 2020?
2020.
Yeah, so 2020, April 2020.
Yeah.
And COVID hit in February.
Yeah.
And I remember but even the run up to that, going when I think back now, I was sure, what was I thinking? Never mind COVID or not. But it's crazy, the stuff that sometimes you're willing to give a go. But I think every day is a school day, and I think you'll always learn, even if it goes bad or it fails. You will learn a lot about yourself, and I think those are the things that are vitally, vitally important. And it's pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. And even as you kind of referenced the Olympics there, I'd be very nervous getting ready to talk to people.
I think that's very normal, though.
But you're right, But sometimes people are like, "God, you're very relaxed and calm," and I'd be like, but internally, I'm nervous, and that's the sort of adrenaline
on
kick
live TV.
On live TV, and trust me, just times where it's gone wrong. I remember interviewing Kieran McGean, and she got sick on me, you know, and live on TV, and then like the text message coming in from all my mates going, "Oh Jesus, Gillick, what did you do?" you know. But again, it's all learning curves, and kind of, I think you learn little bits as you go, and it's all about taking that leap of faith.
Yeah. And how did you find it emotionally to change career? Because I can imagine where you're so focused on your career
Yeah,
in sport to then doing, even though you are still to a certain extent very much still enrolled with sport,
yeah.
but it's a very different side. It's the other side of the camera, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, absolutely. Like, and it might look nice now, and you're there and you're a part of it all. But like, I retired in 2013, so 11 years ago, and I struggled with that kind of, the identity that was associated with, my career as an athlete, and then suddenly, well, who am I now? Well, I was only good at that, and you
Mm,
kind of buy into that. "Oh, I was only good at running around track." Is that what people kind of think of
mm,
me? So you get very you're very conscious of yourself, and then you're comparing yourself to other people, and I found that really tricky. And also kind of, I suppose, the identity around, yeah, for so long I was the athlete, and
mm,
now it was like, well, who was I, or who am I now, and what skills do I have? And as a result of that, I didn't really want to try anything, because I was so afraid of things failing. Because if I'm honest, I kind of looked at the end of my career as a bit of a failure. I was injured, I couldn't compete. So you're in that sort of mindset. And your self worth, confidence, self esteem takes a bit of a bashing. So when those are low, you're very much not willing to make a decision, or even like take that leap of faith.
how did you spin that round?
Yeah, it took a while, and I got professional help.
Yeah.
I went to counsel in 2016 every week. I still go, and what I learned about me, and this was the thing that I probably never did before. You're always in sport or any kind of high performance walk of life. It's all about numbers. Got to get more right. I got to hit the targets, and I never actually took stock. And I think by communicating and actually being open and honest, I began to understand why I was feeling and acting a certain way, and then I could make sense of it all, and as a result of that, I could put kind of things in place for me. And it was actually getting back to the practical things, like looking after myself, getting active again, having a bit of a structure, talking to people. I always had a coach in my life, and when I retired from athletics, I didn't have anyone.
Yeah.
So I'd no one to talk to. I'd no one to bounce things off. And again, we talk about business, and we talk about like having a mentorship and an advisor, an advisory board, a board of management, all these sort of people. They're all in place to kind of actually have a chat and maybe come up with ideas and go, how are you getting on? And I really missed that. So one of the things I've done over the last couple of years is actually engage with people who have helped me out in my career, successful people, and have a coffee with them.
Yeah.
And just have a conversation, have a chat. And they see things in me that I'd never see. And then simply kind of looking at, okay, well, what do I enjoy doing? I love sport. I love being active. I love having a role in sport. So kind of getting into more the TV kind of work. And, I had a conversation with, say, RTE about the Olympic coverage. And, they asked me, well, what would I like to do? And I said, well, I want to be there. Hence why now I'm that reporter trackside. Whereas I could have been co-com, I could have been in the studio, but I want to be there.
But there's some kind of magic with you on the track. I don't know what it is, but you,
It was great.
with the athlete, you know what it's like.
Well, that's it. And I think that empathy is there, and that understanding. And I think when you've walked the walk plenty of times, and to be honest with you, I've walked the walk on plenty more down days than good days, you learn and you understand. So I can relate to what they're going through in that split moment. When they come off the track, and literally 60 seconds later, there I am with the microphone, and
Yeah.
how are you getting on?
That's what came across so much this year. I mean, I was watching so many of the interviews, and I'm thinking to myself, they're still full of adrenaline. They
Full
don't
of
know
it.
what's
Yeah.
happened. Some of them don't even know where they nearly were in the race,
No.
because they've just hit the ground running and they've got over that line. And then, the microphone is in their face, the camera is in front of them, and they
Yeah.
know all of Ireland is watching.
I know, it's daunting. And it's the mix zone is a very kind of, it's a very emotive position to be and place to be in, because it's so raw. And I think, in fairness to all the people that I spoke to, they were so open and honest. And I also think that's what resonated with people back home. I think, people saw what it meant to that individual. We saw tears of joy, tears of despair, and everything that goes into a performance. And I think people resonate with that at home. And I think, the world we live in now, it was probably quite refreshing just to actually,
Hugely.
maybe get away from everything else and actually watch and been engrossed in sport and see, Irish people do extremely well. And I just think they were so open and honest. And it's probably something we don't really see in a lot of sport nowadays. Like a lot of the mainstream sports, the post-match interviews tend to be very sterile in some ways. They're all saying the same thing, nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas we saw the complete opposite. And like, it's an absolute privilege to be in that position, really is. And I felt very in the flow, Like, it's hard work, I'm not going to lie. Like, you're absolutely shattered. And it's just information overload. It's coming thick and fast. But it's great. Like, but it's funny as well, like, because I'm a little bit overwhelmed by all the positivity that I've got, I always kind of reference Roy Keane. If, like, Roy Keane was saying, sure, he's just doing his job, But it was great, and it was a privilege to be there, and I'm grateful for the opportunities.
Yeah, I know, like, I was seeing Facebook posts from like friends and family, and they were like going, "Did you see this David Gillick guy? He's amazing." And I was saying, "Oh yeah, I know him."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was there was definitely, I could see a lot of love everywhere.
Yeah, no, and it was nice. And again, like, I actually don't know when you're there. I don't know the output. I'm not seeing anything that's going out at home.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the show.
You were too busy.
You're too busy, and you're doing the interviews, and sure that they're going back via satellite and all the rest of it. You don't actually know what's going out.
Yeah.
But it was nice, and like, I think, it makes me reflect on, like, when I retired, and then, I did London from studio, and then I did Rio, over in Rio, and then I did Tokyo, and they've all been really different. But it's nice to, even when I look back, that, like, I can see development in myself, and I can see, okay, the things that I do differently, and how I plan now, and, maybe understanding that I don't need to have all the information. You need to watch it as well. You need to be there and be live, and take it in, and kind of be almost like just reactive to what's happening.
Yeah, because it comes across so naturally then. So what's on to now, I suppose. So you have your own podcast.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. I've listened to so many episodes.
Yeah,
even
it's
though
gone
I'm
good. Yeah,
not in the sports myself, but it's so interesting.
but it's a lot more than yourself kind of taking that leap of faith and go, right, I'm going to do a podcast. Like, it was something that we kind of felt, well, would anyone listen? Like, what do we have to kind of say? But it's gone really well, and Dermot O'Rourke and Rob Heffernan are great crack. I know them really well, and we just said, look, we'll give Medals and Mics a bit of a rattle and see what happens. And it's gone well. And kind of outside of that, then, like, as a, like, people say, like, what do you do for a living? And I scratch my head and kind of think, well, depends on the day and depends on the week. But I think I've learned the peaks and the troughs. I know kind of when I'm busy. I know when I can take time off, and it's a bit of an understanding, of kind of when I'm on. And like, it's the buy-in then with the family to understand, okay, like, Daddy's really busy at the moment, but it'll come back down, and you can have that kind of quiet time, and then it peaks up again, And I think that's important to kind of to understand, and it's nice as well, because I have a certain degree of flexibility in that. But at the same time, like, you still have the stress of, like, I need to make sure that money's coming in. I need to make sure I can pay the bills and the mortgage and, all the rest of it. So I'm busy at the moment. I suppose it's fair to say kind of a lot of positivity from the Olympic Games has opened up some opportunities in terms of, talks and kind of hosting things as well, which is another area, kind of emceeing, that I kind of wanted to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't kind of talk to myself about myself for the next 20 years. So it's nice to, and I think as well, like, the positivity around the Olympic sports as well as given a few opportunities to work with a couple of brands, and and just be a part of the positivity around kind of sport right now.
Yeah, I'm going to link your podcast in the show notes. If you are interested in listening to, it's definitely not all about sports. I can tell you that much. There's so many analogies in there. I've really enjoyed listening to myself, and I have identified with people I never thought I would be identifying with. But it's actually really entertaining, because the three of you are bouncing off each other. And I'd also love to know, like, if one of your children wanted to get into the career you're in now, firstly, would you push them towards it, or would you hold back a little bit? And secondly, In what way would you advise they go about it? It's say a listener has a child themselves who's interested in athletics
Yeah.
or even another sport, to be honest.
Yeah, any sport, it's like I mentioned Oscar's 8, like so he's getting in, he's playing like soccer locally, of which I'm kind of helping manage the team, and my daughter Olivia's 6, so she's kind of getting into things now, and she's really active, and then we've got Louis coming behind who's 3, so I get that question sort of on a regular basis, like would I like my kids to get involved in athletics? I'd love it, yeah, I would, and it's kind of like I have a lot of like I suppose when I initially retired, I kind of resented the sport a bit because it hurt me and it put me in a position that I was a little bit uncomfortable. But I think as I got older, like I look back and I go, what opportunities it gave me. Like I traveled the world. I ran in front of 80,000 people. Like I went to there's amazing experiences and moments that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. And it's also probably developed me as a person. Like the skills of kind of looking after myself. Essentially running my own business as an elite athlete and making sure that you're balancing the books and all that. And I think, if the kids wanted to pursue something like that, 100% I would support them, but I wouldn't push them. And right now, like Oscar does athletics, I don't coach him. And that was a decision I made, about a year ago. Even though the club were like, "Oh, will you get involved?" I was like, you know what? I coach him in football. I want him to kind of have his own outlets as well and learn. I will happily get involved when he wants me to, and hopefully that will be in a couple of years. But I think it's, if I'm honest, I look at the way my parents kind of supported me, the lifts to training and that sort of crack. And then as I get a little bit older, I think that holistic approach to their sport as well. And I see it already, even at under 8s and under 9s and under 10s football, it's everything. And I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah, there can be a lot of pressure on
A
teams.
lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think it's kind of, okay, well, like, they're more than just that sports person. And I think if I was to look back at my career, at times I was just the athlete. And that's all I thought I was. And I put all my eggs into that basket. Looking at kind of education, looking at career, looking at the social aspect of it all as well. I think you have to try and find a bit of balance.
I think it can be easy to forget how acutely aware children are of things like that as well.
They soak
They're very
everything
able
up.
to read people.
Yeah. And they mirror.
Yeah.
And I think even at young kind of sporting events, if you're losing the rag on the sideline, kids see that, and kids will react in a very similar way. So silent sidelines is something that is worth trying out, and you have to bite your tongue. But I think in terms of my own kids, just try and support them as best I can. And indeed, if anyone is listening who has maybe kids, and the other side as well, I think kids need like different outlets. And I kind of touched on it already in terms of that long-term development. Like the more variety in a kid's life is really important. And I think even in the sporting world, hand-eye coordination, so what a racket sport or I don't know, golf or tennis, whatever it might be, and then a pitch-based sport and maybe something that, is a little bit more fun. So they're not defined by one activity in their life because it's so fragile. It's so fragile. And particularly with kids, development rates are all different, So I think as parents, the other thing I would say as well is how you communicate with your kid. After a match or after a race, whatever it might be, what's said in the car home or what's said in the dinner table that evening, I always try, and again, it's just the way I approach it. I won't talk about the match to Oscar in the car on the way home unless he wants to bring it up. And I want to talk about it. Of course I do. I'm into sport. But I'm like, no, David, don't. Until he brings it up. Because I want the car to be a safe place coming home, and I don't want him getting in the car and going, "Oh, Dad's going to go through me now for something," And I think that's important. So it's how you communicate and like what's been said, when you're one-on-one post-sport.
I think that's absolutely amazing advice. So something I like to do at the end of a podcast.
We're at the end already. I can talk.
Is ask a question that you're maybe not expecting.
All right, God, yeah.
And I think it comes quite well on from that previous conversation there.
Yeah.
So if you could pass on one piece of financial advice to your children, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. I think, well, me being me, you always have to have the buffer. Whatever that might be or whatever amount it might be. But in my experience at kind of high level sport, it was so fragile. You simply just didn't know what's around the corner. And I think, when the going's good, save a little bit. Doesn't have to be everything, you know, you can live your life and you can enjoy it, but definitely have something there. And I think when I was going into like, you know, working for myself and as essentially a freelancer, it was nice to have a bit of savings there that if nothing was coming in for a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, there's something there that can get you out of the hole. And I think that's, I think you always have to have that little buffer somewhere.
I couldn't agree more. I call it an emergency fund, and I recommend people have at least €1,000 if they're employed, and ideally if they're self-employed have about 3 to 6 months
Yeah, I've
expenses.
heard people say that. All right.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've relied on it too.
I've been there too, you know,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, a lot of people who you read about who have gone on to make millions and all that, they've started with something small and they had it in the back pocket. And I think that's really important, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. It makes all these scary decisions so much easier as well
Yeah.
if you at least know you have that.
Yeah.
You know.
But even as adults and kind of like looking after families now, it's the car insurance is up, the house insurance is up, and it all kind of comes at the same
Yeah.
month. So you're trying to, you know, you need something
Or
to
you
get
get
you
a
out of it.
leak or something happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Been there.
But thank you so much for coming on, David.
I've enjoyed it.
It's been amazing to have you on, and hopefully it's given some people food for thought, especially around careers or
Yeah.
if you've anyone sporty in your family. And I wish you all the best in the future.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And make sure you check out my Instagram and TikTok at Irish Budgeting. And I'm looking forward to joining you in the next episode.